Here is what the majority of people believe regarding economic crises. They arrive without warning. Markets are thought to crash in an instant. Banks are expected to shut their doors overnight, and store shelves are believed to empty within a matter of hours. The common narrative is that one day everything functions perfectly, and the next day it simply does not, with no possible way to foresee the disaster unless you possess elite-level access to the right information. This is a very compelling story, but it is almost entirely inaccurate. When you actually examine how real economic collapses develop, the genuine events, not the versions that are reconstructed after the fact, every major crisis in modern history was preceded by months and sometimes even years of visible, readable, and accessible warning signals. These signals were not hidden in classified intelligence reports or found on financial terminals that cost $10,000 a month. They were present in grocery stores, gas stations, bank lobbies, pharmacy lines, and local neighborhoods. The signals were there for everyone to see. Most people simply walked right past them, not because they were foolish, but because they did not recognize what they were looking at. That recognition is the only thing separating the individuals who managed to get out from the people who were caught in the collapse. In Cyprus in 2013, account holders lost up to 50% of their savings in a single weekend. Yet the signals had been broadcasting for 11 months. In East Germany in 1988, common medications began disappearing from pharmacies. 18 months later, the government could no longer afford to import them and subsequently ceased to exist. In South Korea in 1997, freight companies quietly scaled back their operations for nearly a year before the currency collapsed and the country turned to the IMF. None of these warnings were secret and none required special access. They were visible to anyone who knew what to look for. That is exactly what this video provides. 9 signals, each documented across multiple historical crises in 9 different countries and across 9 different types of economic disruption, all of which are observable right now in 2026, with nothing more than your phone, your eyes, and a personal surveillance routine that takes only 45 minutes a week. By the end of this video, you are going to walk through a grocery store differently, look at a gas station price board differently, and read a bank notification differently because the information was always there. Let us begin with the signal that is happening to you right now every time you shop, which you have likely never noticed. The rule before the first signal is one principle that matters more than anything else we will cover. Crises do not happen suddenly. They are revealed suddenly. By the time something makes the front page, it has been visible in your environment for months. The front page is not breaking news. It is the moment the system stopped being able to hide what was already occurring. The people who survived Hungary's 1946 currency collapse, the 2013 Cyprus banking seizure, or the fracturing of Beirut in the early 1970s were not smarter or better connected than everyone else. They were simply reading their environment while everyone around them was waiting for the headlines to tell them what to think. Headlines are lag indicators that describe what has already happened. Your grocery store, gas station, bank app, pharmacy, and neighborhood for sale signs are leading indicators. These environments broadcast real-time information about the structural health of the systems your life depends on. The skill we are building today is the ability to read that broadcast before the headlines catch up. The first signal is the incredible shrinking product. Go to your pantry and grab a bag of chips, then find a receipt for that same product from 2 years ago. Compare the weight listed on the label. If it is lower, you have already encountered signal 1. This is shrinkflation, where manufacturers quietly reduce unit sizes while keeping prices stable. While this exists in normal times as routine margin management, the crisis signal is not just one product getting smaller. It is when multiple unrelated categories accelerate this process simultaneously. That pattern indicates that producers are absorbing massive upstream cost explosions through unit reduction because raising the sticker price would cost them too many customers. The pressure has exceeded what normal pricing can handle, so they release it slowly through smaller packages, relying on the fact that you will normalize each change before noticing the next. This consistently evades detection because your brain evolved to track price, an explicit number that changes visibly, but has almost no reliable baseline for volume. A bag that feels roughly the same registers as the same product. Manufacturers do not exploit stupidity, they exploit the specific architecture of human perception. In Budapest in 1945, a baker sold smaller loaves at the same price, and his customers thought it was just a post-war adjustment. They were actually watching Act 1 of Hungary's 1946 hyperinflationary collapse, which remains the worst in recorded history. The smaller loaves were not the crisis, they were the leading indicator. In 2026, the first wave of tariff impacts on agricultural imports has been moving through domestic supply chains since early this year. Major food manufacturers have revised packaging specifications across dozens of product lines simultaneously. That simultaneous multi-category acceleration is the signal. You should photograph the unit weight, not the shelf price, but the weight for 5 regular products every time you shop. 4 weeks of photos will tell you more than 4 months of economic news. 1 reduction is normal. 2 on the same product within 6 months means the upstream pressure has not resolved. 3 means it is getting worse. The rate of change is the signal, not the change itself. The second signal is the shelf that is lying to your face. You have been trained correctly to treat individual empty shelves as meaningless noise caused by a late delivery or random variation. However, there is a distinction that changes that calculus entirely. One brand missing is one manufacturer's problem, but 3 separate brands from the same product category being simultaneously absent is a distributor signal. It indicates a supply chain link is under enough stress to affect multiple manufacturers drawing from the same regional network at once. If Heinz is out of ketchup, Heinz had a hiccup. If Heinz, Hunt's, and the store brand are all gone, something broke in the distribution layer between the factories and your store. Beneath that is a technique almost no one thinks to check for called facing. Store employees pull products to the front of a shelf so the section appears fully stocked from the aisle. 5 cans in a neat row looks like full inventory, but if you reach behind those cans and find 3 feet of empty space, the store is papering over a supply constraint with visual presentation. Next time you are in a store, reach behind the front row across 3 different aisles. What you find there is the honest inventory. What you see from the aisle is the story they want you to believe. In the late 1980s, Soviet grocers in Moscow were officially instructed to describe any shortage as a temporary distribution modernization. Behind that language, regional distributors had been reducing shipments for nearly 2 years. Citizens who tracked category patterns across multiple stores, not individual empty spots, but the same categories disappearing repeatedly, built home reserves before the collapse. The system whispered for 24 months. In 2026, the categories deserving the closest attention are eggs, cooking oils, canned proteins, and shelf-stable dairy. The intersection of poultry supply pressures and agricultural import tariff structures has already created strain, showing up as category void patterns in specific regional retail chains. One more tell is the Limit 2 per customer sign. That sign does not get posted without a management-level conversation about incoming supply constraints. The store is conducting its own early warning process in public. You should read it. The third signal is the price tag tango. Stop tracking what most people track, which is the level prices reach, and start tracking the rate at which they change. Normal inflation has a rhythm, such as a price moving from $3.49 in January to $3.79 by July. One change over 6 months that is absorbed and forgotten. System stress looks different. $3.49 on Monday, $3.79 on Wednesday, $3.59 2 weeks later, and $3.99 the week after that. There is no consistent direction and no predictable interval. The price is dancing, changing faster than any normal update cycle, and sometimes even declining before going back up with no apparent logic. When a price moves this way, the entity setting it has lost the ability to confidently model its own future costs. Retailers do not change price tags casually because it costs labor and operational bandwidth. When changes happen at unusual frequency across multiple products simultaneously, the entire upstream cost structure is in active instability. No one in the chain can plan ahead. In Harare, Zimbabwe, in 2007, price revision frequency was the most reliable leading indicator of the collapse that followed. 6 months before the hyperinflationary peak, prices were changing multiple times daily, But 6 months before that, they had been changing weekly, and before that, every few days. Each phase of acceleration predicted the next. Economists tracking how often prices were revised rather than the level they reached described the trajectory months before the public understood what was happening. The government eventually deployed price control inspectors to freeze costs by law, but when a government suppresses a price signal by force, the product always disappears. Merchants stop selling at prices below replacement cost. You can legislate the number on the tag, but you cannot legislate what appears under it. Photograph price tags for the same 10 products every time you shop and count the changes per product per month. 2 changes on the same item in 30 days is a yellow flag, 3 is a red flag. Any product hitting 3 or more revisions in a single month has an upstream cost structure in active chaos. The fourth signal is the bank that changed its mind about your money. Banks have a precisely engineered communication strategy where everything that does not matter, like card redesigns or branch renovations, is communicated loudly. Everything that matters critically arrives in footnotes, fine print, or not at all. When a bank changes something that affects your access to your own money, you will not receive a proactive notification. You will discover it when you try to exercise a right you thought you had. There are 4 things to watch: your ATM daily withdrawal limit, wire transfer processing times, maintenance windows, and teller friction on large cash withdrawals. Most people do not know their actual current limit until they try to exceed it, and this can be changed unilaterally without notification. Under banking stress, limits quietly contract as institutions manage physical cash reserves more carefully. Standard domestic transfers usually clear within 1 business day, but when a bank is under liquidity pressure, they may slow deposit outflows while maintaining the appearance of normalcy. Being told you are experiencing slightly elevated processing times is not a technical inconvenience. It is a liquidity management decision in customer service language. Routine maintenance is predictable and brief, but when windows appear on weekday afternoons or recur frequently, the institution is managing something unscheduled. Finally, banks have no legal requirement to ask why you are withdrawing your own money. When the question feels unusual or the transaction slows without reason, you may be experiencing an informal pressure test. In Cyprus in March 2013, the banking system suspended for 12 days, and depositors with over $100,000 found up to 50% converted to equity in a failing bank, a bail-in never before used in a modern Western economy. The signal had been broadcasting for 11 months through extended processing times, reduced ATM limits, and unusual delays on large transfers. Those who moved deposits during that window kept their money, while those who attributed the friction to routine inconvenience did not. Know your actual ATM limit right now, test it, write it down, and check it again in 90 days. The fifth signal is the gas station that is lying to you. The price of gasoline is the most watched consumer price in America, but almost nobody tracks the gap between the numbers. Under normal distribution conditions, fuel pricing within a metro area varies by only a few cents because regional supply relationships create stable differentials. When that range expands and the spread between the cheapest and most expensive in your city grows to 30, 40, or 50 cents, you are not looking at price gouging. You are looking at a distribution network fracture. Different stations are accessing fuel through different supply relationships under unequal pressure. Some pay more because their normal supply chain is stressed and they are drawing from secondary sources. The dollar spread directly measures how fractured the regional distribution network has become. Diesel is an even more sensitive signal because it powers commercial freight, trucking, rail, and agriculture. When diesel spikes disproportionately to regular gasoline, commercial logistics is under supply-side stress, and everything transported through it becomes more expensive and less reliably available. In Iran in June 2007, the government announced nationwide fuel rationing that appeared to arrive overnight, leading to explosive public responses. However, regional fuel price differentials had been widening for months, and stations in outlying areas had begun requiring cash-only payment and informal limits before any official policy. The supply system had been broadcasting the decision for months. Use Gas Buddy to map the price spread across your metro to track whether the gap is widening from your baseline. Also, flag cash-only signs at stations that previously accepted cards, as it means the operating margin no longer supports the processing costs. The sixth signal is the silence in the shipping lane. Every product in your home made at least one ocean crossing to get there. The modern consumer economy is operationally containers moving between factories, ports, distribution centers, and stores. The speed and volume of that movement is the actual heartbeat of the supply chain. When that heartbeat slows, the effects take months to reach your door, but they arrive consistently. The system stays invisible until it stops working, at which point it announces failure through empty shelves and long delivery windows. However, there is a proxy signal available right now on your phone, your Amazon delivery estimate. It is a real-time operational measurement of logistics capacity in your zip code, reflecting how much inventory is staged at the regional hub and its throughput capacity. When Amazon can no longer consistently promise two-day delivery, that hub is operating at degraded capacity due to labor shortages, facility constraints, or thinning inventory. Watch this across multiple sellers. If third-party retailers across unrelated categories are all extending delivery estimates simultaneously, that is a systemic logistics signal. South Korea's 1997 crisis had been signaling in the freight sector for nearly a year before public acknowledgement, as logistics operations quietly froze expansion and extended delivery timelines. Review your last 5 orders from different retailers and note the promised versus actual delivery date to track building trends. The seventh signal is the job posting that was never going to hire you. A posting live for 4 months or a role reposted monthly without being filled is often called a ghost job. This is a measurable leading indicator of corporate confidence. Companies post listings to signal health to investors and competitors, but they only actually hire when they are confident about near-term revenue. When that confidence evaporates, the posting stays live while the budget freezes to perform confidence while deferring commitment. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tracks this through the JOLTS report, but unemployment is a lag indicator that tells you who already lost their job. The JOLTS ratio between openings and actual hires is a forward indicator of what companies are willing to commit to financially. When that ratio diverges sharply, you are measuring the gap between corporate performance and reality. In Japan, beginning in 1990, corporations continued running job listings even as the Nikkei declined, maintaining advertisements as a matter of institutional face while implementing systematic hiring freezes. This continued for months after the asset price collapse, leading to Japan's lost decade. Visit sites like layoff.fyi and trueup.io weekly to track the hiring versus separation balance in industries connected to your employment. When manufacturing and logistics show the sharpest divergence, the physical economy is signaling contraction before the mainstream narrative finds language for it. The eighth signal is the pharmacy that cannot fill your prescription. The United States manufactures very little of its own medicine, with approximately 80% of active ingredients produced in India and China. They travel through a just-in-time supply system optimized for cost efficiency, which makes it brittle. When something disrupts the supply line, the disruption passes immediately to the patient. Medication stockouts follow a sequence. The first casualty is the generic, then the brand name goes on back order, and finally the medication is simply absent. Pediatric formulations, like liquid antibiotics and children's fever reducers, are always the earliest indicators because they have the narrowest margins and least buffer. When children's amoxicillin is simultaneously back-ordered at multiple chains, the disruption likely extends into other categories. In East Germany, Western medications began disappearing 18 months before the Berlin Wall fell due to a foreign currency reserve crisis. The pharmacies were displaying a symptom of a monetary system already hollowed out. The FDA maintains a drug shortage database at fda.gov that is publicly accessible but rarely consulted. Check it monthly to track the total count in which therapeutic categories are being added. When the list expands into common widespread conditions, you are watching a supply chain signal months before most people understand it. The ninth signal is the for sale signs that know something you don't. Individual signs mean nothing, but real estate at scale is the most honest aggregate economic data. Property prices represent the collective forward judgment of thousands of actors about the future value of a place. The signal is a specific combination: inventory increasing while rental rates simultaneously fall in the same area. This means property owners who can exit are choosing to sell rather than hold, judging that the long-term risk-adjusted return no longer justifies keeping capital there. When landlords cut rents, the renter pool is shrinking or declining in financial capacity. When both happen together, smart capital is leaving. One of the most useful leading indicators is U-Haul one-way rental pricing. U-Haul prices rentals dynamically based on supply and demand. When people leave a city, outbound prices rise. The asymmetry tells you the direction the crowd is moving. In Beirut, between 1973 and 1975, real estate transactions were broadcasting the fracture that would become the Civil War 2 years before the first shots were fired. Spend 15 minutes on Zillow or Redfin looking at days on market and price reductions. When average days extend and new listing volume increases, sellers are more motivated than buyers, providing a collective forward assessment of the area's trajectory. None of these 9 signals in isolation means anything decisive. Individual changes are noise as supply chains flex and markets breathe. If you treat every single signal as a fire alarm, you will become the person who has predicted 10 of the last 0 economic collapses, and you will burn out. The pattern and the rate of change are the signals. Multiple signals from different categories converging within the same observation window is what separates systemic deterioration from background variation. One signal moving unusually should be noted. 2 in different categories in the same month should increase your observation frequency. 3 or more means moving from observation to preparation. Even when signals are real, timing is hard because political intervention and institutional denial can extend the gap between early warning and actual impact. These signals tell you which direction to move and what to prepare for, giving you lead time that has historically been enough. Your personal early warning system takes 45 minutes across 3 days of your week. Monday is your market scan. Photograph the unit weight for 5 products you buy every week, look for category voids, check for quantity restrictions, and note any cash-only signs. Wednesday is your digital scan. Use GasBuddy to map the price spread, check layoff.fyi for hiring versus separation balance, and consult the FDA drug shortage database. Friday is your banking check. Log into your app or use an ATM to check and record your current daily withdrawal limit. Use a scoring system where each definitive signal equals 1 point. 0 to 2 points is normal background noise. 3 to 5 points means something is accumulating, so push your food buffer toward 30 days and increase physical cash. 6 to 8 points means multiple systems are under stress. Extend your buffer to 90 days and review your financial positioning. 9 or more points in a single month is a multi-system convergence, which consistently precedes significant disruption. The appropriate response is to start executing the plans you have already built. Going back to Budapest in the fall of 1945, the baker's customers were not foolish. They were doing exactly what rational people do in the absence of a framework for reading signals. They accepted the most reassuring explanation and moved on, which was a sensible but wrong response because they lacked a specific skill. That skill is what you now have. The people who made it through historical collapses acted before acting became urgent and before the options had narrowed. This is not a retreat from your life or a declaration of collapse. It is the consistent, rational application of pattern recognition to your environment. The signals are already out there, and some are broadcasting right now in 2026. What you do with this information is entirely up to you. If this analysis of the hidden signals within our economy has changed the way you perceive the world around you, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. We are dedicated to excavating the history and data that many attempt to bury. Stay vigilant, stay prepared, and help us plant the seeds for a more informed future. The next treasury of insights will be opened very soon.